of
dollar bills, y'all.
I'd like to attend. Thank you, Liberty, and on to the next journey. Like, would that give you more appreciation for someone like this? Because first of all, if you were adding TJ Bush or Jay Hardy, or I know plenty of people have even more hard feelings on someone like Kaden Salter, please don't. Like, first of all, just be better than that than going after someone on social media as a fan. But second of all, you don't understand what someone's personal situation is like. I don't know TJ Bush's upbringing. I don't know how much money his parents invested in him to be able to hone and try to improve his football skills. But this type of stuff often influences why players go somewhere else. They view this as a decision-making economic proposition of trying to come close to getting an ROI on investing in sports. Now, where I think you may be kind of missing the boat, and again, I don't fault the kids, I fault the elected officials in college sports, those that have been put in power, that have been given, as our guy Melissa McCarthy would remind us, or our gal.
Lots of power.
Is the people in charge who should have seen this coming. And the NCAA, who for over a 10-year period reportedly spent about $40 million per year in legal fees, but never once did they want to say, hey, how does our model hold up in the court of law? And what can we do to get ahead of things? Offer your legal guidance for $40 million a year. And let's see if in 10 years, we can be in a better spot than we are. Like, it never really occurred to them that might be the idea. In fact, if the lawyers proposed it, I'm pretty sure the NCAA would have said,
rejected.
And that's just what would happen. So here's the thing. I'd just be more amused if we got to a point where when athletes transferred out, they were more transparent that, hey, I attended JMU, Liberty, and Old Dominion and picked it because it was a good school for where I am. But over the course of time, as I developed my game and the school helped me to develop it, I've been in a spot where I can benefit myself and my family, and I must do what's best for me and go on to the next offer. Kind of like back in the day. Like, I'll use North Carolina as an example because, believe it or not, TJ, once upon a time, it was North Carolina that put the guys in the NBA who left early, and Duke had the guys that stuck around over a longer period of time.
That is true. Very true.
But obviously that's flipped. Duke is the one and done university. I don't think it's the best model to win a championship. If you're not doing it with Cooper Flagg, I know the Boozer twins are supposed to be great, but I mean, it's going to be really hard. But if that's the route you want to go, you'll still have a lot of talent. You'll still have deep postseason runs. Maybe you cut down the nets at some point. But back in the day, I'll never forget Antoine Jamison, Jerry Stackhouse, the players at Carolina during my youth in the mid to late 90s would always say, I am grateful for my time at North Carolina, but I must do what's best for, this is my favorite part, of course, me and my family. Let's say grammatically incorrect after attending such a prestigious academic school. Nobody helping them get through, of course, academically. But I must do what's best for me and my family and go ahead and enter the NBA draft. So I'd love to see that. I'm not holding my breath that's going to happen. I don't fault the athletes for doing that because part of their advisors may be telling them, don't do that because technically you can't get paid for play, so you can't actually tell people what's going on. So instead, we're left with these eye-roll inducing statements that come out from any athlete that enters the transfer portal of, I am so grateful for my time. I will always be an insert your school here, a Liberty Flame, a JMU Duke, an ODU Monarch, but I am entering the but, I'm sorry, this was a great dating while we had it, but I'm about to break up with you. I mean, really? Like, that's kind of it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Could you imagine if you go up to Brenda? Brenda, I am so sorry. Brenda, this was a great run we've had, but, like, what do you think the reaction's going to be? Of course
she's angry.
She absolutely.
Absolutely.
And justifiably so. So I will flip it around and say, I get why these athletes are not more transparent.
Yeah.
The people in their ears may well be, first of all, I think in a lot of cases, they still want what's best for the athlete, even if they're not properly channeling that. But I get it. It would just be rather refreshing and amusing if at some point you got an athlete that said, hey, I always enjoy my time at insert your school here. It was the best opportunity for me at that time, and I wanted to come and make the most of it. But because I made the most of it, somebody's made me a financial offer that's just best for me and my family, and we've got to take that, and that's why we're leaving. I'd actually respect them more. Like, and not that I don't disrespect, not that I disrespect a TJ Bush or a Jay Hardy or a Chris Bowtie. I presume they're going to get more money somewhere else, much like Kaden Salter and Xavier Gray and other transfers. We'll just use Liberty as an example, have gotten more money elsewhere. Like, I don't begrudge them for doing that. But in this day and age, I'd love to see it. And if nothing else, maybe it would represent a middle fingers. I'm trying not to give them to our viewing audience at Fastlane, Nedlane, and BTRN Sports on Facebook Live and YouTube. But it would kind of give a middle finger to the whole idea of what's going on, because we all know why these people are transferring. And that's the part where I get the fan frustration when you see the statement of, I will always be a Liberty Flame, but not really, because I'm about to go be an LSU Tiger, a Georgia Bulldog, or a Virginia Tech Hokie, because they're going to pay me a lot more money.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously.
No, absolutely.
Like, with this?
No. Like, I mean, the only fan base I think that's probably understanding right now is the California Golden Bear fan base. They just lost like all 5 of their running backs, including Jaden Ott to Oklahoma. So.
Oh my goodness, more on that in the Fast 5 and 5-ish in a moment. But it's just, I mean, it's rather comical. Like, I am doing what's best for me and my family.
No.
Like, I can actually appreciate the reality of that.
I agree. And Nico, I think the same can be said for Nico. No matter what side you're on, at the end of the day, is he doing what's best for him and his family? Was it best for him to stay at Tennessee? Reportedly, he may go to UCLA. Is that the best for him and his family? You don't know. We don't know what's going behind the scenes.
No, you don't know a lot of it. You don't know. Sometimes it legitimately is bad advice.
Yeah.
And people overplaying their hand. And it sure looks like maybe that's the case.
Yeah.
With Nico Imaliaba, maybe it's the classic, I'm blinded as the parent because I'm so rah-rah for my child that I can't give a neutral assessment of how much they actually need to improve and what their market value really is. Like, that's why you hire, again, a Rosenhaus or a CAA or whomever to manage your relationships, because they can kind of read the market and give you a neutral perspective where, okay, maybe here's what your real market value is. Again, I know who would ever tamper behind the scenes and pimp the offers out. But I just become conditioned.
Right.
That when an athlete, I mean, you see these reports out from, in football, it's Pete Thamel or, insert, Hayes Fawcett, great reporters. But it's often, so-and-so is committed to X school or entering the transfer portal. The best suitors, according to his representatives, are blank, which to me is code for they've been pimping the guy's services while he's on the active roster.
No.
It's kind of the old adage of the best time to upgrade your job is when you actually have a job, because you have more leverage.
Yeah.
It's the same thing when it comes to this. Like, again, go back to where we are in college athletics. We're talking about essentially, I know the NCAA doesn't want to call them that yet,
right?
And they're trying to cling to whatever antiquated idea they have to say it's not the case. But we're talking about employees here.
Yeah.
These guys are payroll is offloaded to third-party services because the NCAA doesn't want to ever admit this. Like, it's no. And again, that goes to, and by the way, if you're wondering why, and why plenty of people that are elected in the NCAA, and it's often athletic administrators, schools don't want to have to get rid of half of the associate athletic director for insert your position here.
Yeah.
And the NCAA doesn't want to have to get rid of half of their staff, because essentially when you start paying players, the money going to those associate athletic director for insert your positions at the schools or the NCAA, those people are out of a job. I mean, is it really necessary? Can the school function without it, or with other people taking on more work? Potentially so. But nobody wants to go that particular route. So until then, we're going to be guarding our desk with antiquated titles and a sham of an idea that everyone knows is the case. And again, I do not fault the players at all.
Absolutely not.
They have a finite window on which to capitalize on their abilities. Many of them, as we've discussed, TJ, it's not going to be in the professional level. So this legitimately is, like, again, TJ Bush, great player, 6'3", 265, good pass rusher. If he can do what he did at Liberty in the ACC and the Big 12 or the SEC and the Big 10, if he gets one of those places, which I presume if you're leaving Liberty, you probably are, because Liberty's pretty healthy as far as NIL funds for a Group of 5 program.
Yeah.
But if TJ Bush is going to one of those places, then, and he's in a premium position, O-line, D-line, it's premium position, then he will have earned more money at the next level. But you'll never know until you get there. So again, I don't fault a TJ Bush or a Jay Hardy or a Chris Bodie. It's merely the reality of the system. And again, I have said this before, but blame the people that have, as Melissa McCarthy would remind us,
lots of power.
Because rather than doing good with it and being leaders, they just decided they wanted to protect and make sure they preserved
lots of power.
And they continue to do things like that until it is stripped away completely from them.
And that's why I think this whole Nico thing, being the first player to hold out, athletic directors are going to show their power. Hey, if you do what Nico did, you're not going anywhere. We'll cut you and you'll be searching for your next school for who knows how long. It doesn't matter how talented you are.
No doubt about it. And by the way, we've gotten feedback on this, and it's been really good. One of them is Aubrey chimed in. I think TJ or TJ Bush, not TJ Wilkerson.
Yeah.
TJ, but although maybe if you have, let us know. But Aubrey goes, I think TJ Bush got poached.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yes, I would concur with that. Again, I don't fault him. If he has representation or if he doesn't and is about to, that's what their job is. Like, if you hire an agent and TJ Bush all of a sudden has one, you're hiring them to get the best deal.
Oh, no, absolutely.
Plenty of people in our position in sports, like not us at our level, but like higher up the sports media food chain,
absolutely
have representation. Their job is to gauge the market of what their clients is 24/7 so that the client can just focus on doing their thing. That's why you hire them. So absolutely, like I think Aubrey did that. Aubrey is correct that TJ Bush got poached. I'll go a step further. I remember 2 to 3 years ago at the ACC football kickoff. I'm pretty sure you were there being professional and working, applying your craft as well before you stepped into the Virginia Talk Radio Network world, TJ.
Was.
But I remember speaking with someone, and they were talking about an ACC skill position player and showing me the text messages that came from another Power 5 school offering that particular player more money to enter the transfer portal. Now, that player did not enter the transfer portal, went on to stay at the school, and has since gone on to be in the NFL on his rookie contract. But this was going on years ago. And the ding, ding, ding that just entered my mind is you're not doing your job if you're not scouting talent off of other rosters. Like, do you think all these staffers at places like Georgia, Florida, LSU, sorry to my pastor, Father Chris, who's an LSU fan, but I'm pretty sure they're doing it because everyone in the SEC.
Oh, they're definitely doing it.
Again, our guy, Michael Lombardi, my guy for North Carolina, the football GM. Lombardi is not doing his job as the GM of North Carolina football if he or his staffers are not reviewing the tape of people at Group of 5 and even other Power 5 programs to determine whether they might enter the transfer portal and then whether they could be a fit first schematically, but going further, culturally to a particular program. So in doing that, you're going to get a gauge on the financial side. You're going to get a gauge on whether the guy is a cultural fit, and doing your due diligence, that's the case. And if North Carolina is not doing it, they're not doing their job because other schools are doing it. Virginia's not doing it. They're not doing their job. Virginia Tech, all of these schools are not doing their job, and they're falling behind if they're not making that particular investment. Ron adds an interesting point, by the way. And by the way, we'll table the Fast Five at 5-ish. We may go with a longer version of it tomorrow in the Fast Lane. So we can get to Ben Cates of NewsAdvance.com around 5:25. And then former New York Rangers general manager Neil Smith around 5:45. We'll look ahead to the Stanley Cup playoffs. NHL, I love it, by the way. Wraps up their regular season tonight, and the playoffs begin this weekend. Bang, bang, bang. No delay. Love it. But Ron adds, here's a solution. Make these players sit out of the year, just like the old transfer policy, and limit the number of transfers one player can make. In theory, Ron, it's a great idea. Here's where I'll brush back, though, on what Ron has to say about this. In theory, you should make them sit out a year and they can only transfer once. But the reality is, those used to be the NCAA mandated rules, and they were taken to court and they lost those rules by a federal judge. So there's no going back. The only way you could get back to that is, again, what the NCAA doesn't want to do, because it means they would have to relinquish
lots of power,
is make them employees, at which point they can collectively bargain on that setup. But the judges have said the business model of the NCAA, how often you can transfer, where you can transfer, if you have to sit out a year or not, it's not the case. The SEC has an interconference transfer rule, which is in the first transfer portal window in late December, early January, and to the early February. You can enter the transfer portal and go from one SEC school to the next. But in the second window, you cannot do that. That ruling is negotiated on by the Southeastern Conference amongst its member schools. And newsflash, they've been the advocates of making them employees and paying them. So if they have their drudgers and it gets challenged, they would break away, I would presume, to preserve that ruling and to preserve the power that they have. Other comments, by the way, that have come in on this. One is Liberty Fan Mail. I don't know who this person is, but y'all might. Simple counter. If a player leaves under clear tampering from another program in the nicest way possible, I don't care what happens to their career. I care about Flames. those are the ones who are here and not the ones leaving for money, but just try to counter it. I think in theory you can counter it. And again, this is kind of the Auburn Hugh Freeze.
Yeah.
Hugh Freeze got a raise to go from Liberty to Auburn. What, $5 million was his initial extension, the one we mocked back in mid-2022 season when it was only to keep people off the scent except us.
Yeah.
But he got from $5 to $6.5 million to go from Liberty to Auburn initially. It was the prestige of the job. Well, for TJ Bush, Liberty might be able to come up with something similar, but the prestige of going to a bigger conference and competing against better offensive linemen and better defenses, which can elevate his NFL draft stock and mean more lucrative opportunities down the road, that's probably part of the reason why. And there's just not much you can do to compete against that if you're Liberty other than have a head coach who has a great scheme, and they do with Jamie Chadwell offensively, and have good defensive coaches, and then coach the heck out of the players that you have. Meanwhile, Dave adds, Group of Five is simply a farm ladder for the Power Four now. It's the new JUCO. Every school needs to put these players on a contract with a buyout if they leave early. Again, I think the first part of Dave's comment is right. The Group of Five is effectively
it's a farming system
for Power Four programs. And it is the new JUCO. And you've heard Jamie Chadwell and Richie McKay mention that as well, but that's going to be the reality of just where they are in the lot they've been cast. Now, I think Liberty's one of the 5 best positioned Group of 5 programs that in the new waves of alignment, they might be in a spot where they can do more, have more resources, and have more prestige. I think for a Group of 5, they're relatively healthy. More on who those others are later. But every school needs to put these players on a contract with a buyout if they leave early. The theory behind it is great, Dave. I love to see it. But the only way to do that is you have to be willing to make them employees, which means the NCAA and the school people that are enforcing the NCAA have to be willing to relinquish
lots of power
and understand that that's the only route to get this going forward. By the way, a couple of more that bring it up. One is LU Illustrated chimed in. There's a potential we fans don't know what's going on internally. I would agree with that. But I'll also say this. I think if in 3 weeks TJ Bush has still not landed somewhere, or if in 5 months, and we're at the start of the season, and Bush, Hardy, and Bowtie have not landed anywhere, at that point, it's legitimate to say there are red flags. But in the next month, if they land at just presumably more well-resourced, more prominent programs, I think you've got your answer on what's going on. Jordan chimes in, there will be Grand Canyon-sized gaps from the Power 4 teams to the other teams. You're going to see massive shifts in low-level teams from year to year. Any low-level team with success is likely from here on out just to have all their stars poached, so they'll need to rebuild yearly.
Yeah.
I mean, look, that's the one thing about Liberty. You've got the best coach in Conference USA and one of the best coaches in Group of 5 football with Jamie Chadwell. And because of that, and because he has a system that I wouldn't say it's fully player agnostic, but if the players buy into the system, TJ, I personally am of the belief that they can, it's not direct plug and play because that's an insult to the work that's being put in by the players, but focused plug and play. Players are focused and want to be there and buy in and maybe see it as an opportunity to showcase their skills for a year or two and then move on. Then if you got the right attitude, and by the way, I will say this, TJ Bush had the right attitude throughout the entire season. Like in the season, he played hard. It was shown on film. I don't know what he was doing behind the scenes, so I can't chime in on that the way that Philip, our own intern Philip, could probably do on the morning warm-up with Trey and next time he's with us, which may be on Friday. But we're talking about the other elements of this. But there are Grand Canyon-sized gaps right now in terms of the perception of those leagues, if not the resources themselves. And in basketball, it's different than football because in football, there's a system component that goes into it. In basketball, Liberty can buy great players in basketball, kind of like Memphis can buy great players in basketball. And they'll have a chance to make deep runs in the tournament just because they can buy premium talent. And if it all gels together, they're in a decent enough spot because there's some system agnostic nature. In football, there's some system elements to it. And for TJ Bush, going up against mediocre offensive linemen in Conference USA versus better offensive linemen in Power 4 programs or even the Power 2, it's just going to raise a player's stock to a way that you just can't going forward. Whereas in basketball, you can see the guy's athleticism and go, oh, that translates to the pros. Versus in football, there's an element of the resistance factor of your opponent trying to do something to you that's just physically much greater at a different level. A couple more that, by the way, chimed in. Cincy Flame adds, what this basically means is that other teams are recruiting these players before they're in the portal and are active on a current roster. I will reiterate what we said earlier to Cincy Flame, which is this is happening at every program. And you're
Yeah.
not doing your job if you're not scouting players off of other rosters, because if Virginia Tech's not doing it, well, then guess what? Miami and Florida State and Clemson and North Carolina are going to get further ahead of them because they're all doing it.
Yeah.
Same thing in all these other programs. You almost, it's a keeping up with the Joneses mentality, similar to, I'll use this as an analogy. But back in the day, Lance Armstrong got in trouble for doping. But
Yep.
the way someone explained it to me was, if Lance Armstrong is not using performance-enhancing substances, then, the other competitors around him are. And he mentioned it. It was like the first, Lance was obviously number one, but like guys 2 through 14 in the rankings of the Tour de France all had some kind of implication to them and their careers as well. It just wasn't as spotlighted. And the reason they're all doing it is, they may not have beaten Lance, but to have any snowball's chance, and they had to do it to keep up with what he was doing. So then it just becomes a game of competition, and that's what breeds it. And water finds its level, as they say. People will look for ways to circumvent the rules, and it's different in college sports because in the NFL or the NBA or other leagues, things are airtight. Like there are ironclad agreements in place, and if you get in trouble for doing things explicitly, you'll lose draft picks, you'll have to pay big monetary fines. Why? Because it's all collectively bargained between the players and the teams, whereas college football and college basketball, the people in charge, the people with
Lots of power.
have for years, basically, when presented with the idea of collectively bargaining,
Rejected.
that collective bargaining. So that's why we are where we are. By the way, thanks for the feedback. It was great. We had a lot of it. It's why we postponed the Fast Five at 5-ish until tomorrow. But keep it coming on whether you'd like to see players just being more honest about why they are entering the transfer portal. Meanwhile, we'll get some perspective on someone who covers that, but also a lot of the more pure sports out there. And I know they're not 100% pure in high school, but much more than they've been previously. Ben Cates of newsadvance.com slated to join us next. This is the Fast Lane on the VTR in Sports app, and ask that smart speaker, open VTR in Sports.
Mark Dalton here with the Terry Auto Group. If you don't love your car, then you're simply just driving the wrong one. At Terry Volkswagen, Terry Subaru, Terry Auto Outlet, and the Terry Clearance Center, we've got the perfect new or used car for you. We make your car buying experience easy. Need help with imperfect credit? No problem. Our team works hard to get you approved and back on the road. Because when you shop at Terry, you drive away happy. Visit us at any of our 4 locations or online at terryautogroup.com. Terry Auto Group. You'll love our cars.
When shopping for auto insurance, it's worth paying a little bit more for strong coverage against uninsured drivers. That way, if you're on the wrong end of an accident, you and your family are protected from drivers with little to no insurance. I'm Randy Trost with Trost Law. Just a friendly reminder that saying yes to a strong policy with higher uninsured motorist coverage limits is a small investment that you can make to protect you and your family against a big headache. If you've been injured in a motor vehicle accident, call us at 777. Visit trostlaw.com.
Are you a fan of fireworks or collecting sports memorabilia? Or maybe instead of the bar, you want to spend your night at the ballpark? Whatever your passion, the Lynchburg Hillcats have a mini plan package for you. Make sure to secure your tickets for every Thirsty Thursday, Freebie Friday, or Fireworks Show Saturday with one of our dated mini plans. Craving more baseball? Sign up for our 30-game mini plan. Not sure what games you want to go to? The Hillcats offer undated mini plans as well. For more information and to purchase your 2024 mini plan, visit lynchburg-hillcats.com.
Hi, Gary the Third here, and I'm excited to say spring has arrived at Gary's Garden Center with great plants and a great selection. Gary's has seasonal color flowers along with vegetables, 60-plus varieties of herbs, perennial flowers, and much more. With friendly service and great advice, we are always happy to answer your questions. Visit Gary's Garden Center at 794 Leesville Road for all your lawn and garden needs. Stop by, say hi, and take a look around.
Are you ready to move to the next chapter of your life? That means you're ready for us. Hi, I'm Moyanne Harding, the region's only total turnkey realtor and interior designer. We'll come to you and help you decide what you're ready to let go of and bring you top dollar for those unwanted items. Most importantly, we'll sell your most valuable investment, your home. With decades of experience, just hand your keys to us and let the stress melt away. Call me today and book your consultation, www.moyanne.com.
Moyanne Harding, brokered by Keller Williams.
Pull up a seat and join our conversation. Around the Table with Vicki is my new local radio show and podcast discussing leadership, entrepreneurship, philanthropy, faith, and family.
What role would you say that innovation and adapting to change plays in your business
Oh
strategy.
my goodness,
And
so much.
I think that's something we've learned through the last 5 years.
Well, I mean,
especially
honestly,
through COVID.
you've done a lot of that. I mean, as the younger generation brings Chat GTP and all these different things that you look at that brings, if you're not open to what technology is bringing, you just sort of die.
Well, that is something that you spearheaded not only in our family, but in our company, is that you've been telling us for 10 years, Mom, you've got to be able to adapt and change or your business stays stagnant and doesn't grow. And we've kind of listened to you about that. Whatever business that you're in, you better make sure that you've got a budget to be able to make those innovative changes along the way.
Stay in the front of that. You want to
You
stay
gotta
in
stay in
front of
front of it.
technology. You got to embrace it. Or if you don't understand, to find somebody that does, because ultimately whoever embraces the innovation first wins.
Mm-hmm.
They
And
really-
we
they-
love to
they
be the one
really
that
do.
wins.
Even the senior living world, I think the things that we've tried, we've always tried to be innovative and creative and doing something that if we go on a trip, we find something cool, we try to come back and bring that here.
Around the Table with Vicki, Saturdays at 10 a.m. on WIQO.
Car insurance rates are rising rapidly. That's no secret. It's because the cost of medical care for those who are injured and the repair and replacement cost of damaged vehicles is skyrocketing. But what can you do about it? Hi, this is Judd Gardner with Gardner Insurance Solutions in Lynchburg. We've been helping Central Virginia drivers purchase the coverage they need at affordable prices since 1993. Talk with us before you pay again. We represent numerous companies and have many cost-saving strategies. Gardner Insurance Solutions, 434-316-5433.
Allstate agent Donovan Howell is now serving Lynchburg. He lives and works here just like you. And with all kinds of local insurance advice, Donovan is someone you can count on to help you protect all that's good in your life. Donovan makes it easy to save on the quality protection you need, and I'll even help you do the switching and the paperwork for you.
Call or come by the Donovan Howell Allstate office in Windhurst today.
From the blue waters of the Chesapeake Bay to the hills of Tennessee, listen to The Fast Lane with Ed Lane and Trey Lyle on the VTRN Sports app.
Hey, this is Virginia Tech analyst and former Hokies tight end Mike Burnham. You're listening to The Fast Lane with Ed Lane and Trey Lyle. Join the chat at Trey Lyle VT and Fast Lane Ed Lane on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram.
From a perspective of sports, we were touching on this earlier in the Fast Lane, and we always appreciate your feedback. Have a lot of good feedback that we already discussed from Fast Lane, Ed Lane, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I compartmentalize pro sports or pro sports. I view college revenue generating college sports, football, basketball, men more than women, but both of those through a different lens than which I view the other college sports. The purity of the game is much more prevalent in the others. Not saying it's bad that you have a chance to make money for yourself or that money is motivating decisions everywhere, but it's more prevalent in the bigger sports. High school, again, it's not as pure as people might think. There are instances where you go, how did X player wind up at this school, even though they don't technically live there, but they moved in with a relative at that school? Like, those things have happened before. But comparatively speaking, there is still a much greater level of purity in high school sports, which is part of the appeal to it. Even if it's not perfect, it's still got a lot of that, despite the fact that, again, we're talking about just generally the human race. And so everything's going to have its level of flaws in the world. I bring that up because curious whether or not our next guest, Ben Cates, who covers a little bit of college sports, but a lot of prep sports for newsadvance.com, whether his appreciation for high school sports has increased as we've seen things change quite a bit in the college game. So, Ben, we appreciate your time. Always love catching up with you. Not saying that you detest college sports, but has your appreciation and have you noticed fan appreciation of high school sports maybe intensify and change just given what we're seeing in the college game?
Yeah, good topic, I think, for today. There is a lot of movement that is taking place more and more frequently in high school sports. If you were to take a kind of national look at the scene, you're seeing the kind of the arrival of what would it look like to mirror the college game as far as what athletes are allowed to do and the people that are surrounding them at that level. And so there is a lot of that kind of discussion about will high school sports sort of begin over time to mirror the college game that we are seeing now. I think if your listeners have ever, heard somebody like Dennis Carter talk about high school sports, anytime that Dennis and I get to talk together, we always talk about how wonderful the scene of high school sports is. And I think if you were to talk to anybody who has been a reporter and really spent a ton of time on the high school beat, they have an appreciation for it as well, because there is just so much of a different kind of vibe to the whole thing, right? And there's so much passion that kids have for the game, and that's the question with college sports now, right? That we see every day is all you have to do is talk to a buddy and see what they think about the transfer portal, and you're going to come up with. You talk to 5 people, you might come up with 5 different answers and opinions. But there's a sense where the portal is quote unquote ruining the game, or the portal is leading to a lot of freedom with athletes. Whatever point you want to take, it is such a changing landscape, and I think the passion that a lot of people have for high school sports, whether they're coaches, whether they're players, whether they're people in the school, volunteers, is, you want to hold on to that tradition of keeping the game as pure as possible, because there really is no such thing as an amateur anymore after this year. And so other than kind of at the high schoolish level. So that's a long answer, but yes.
No, I mean, but it's a valid answer, I would say, right now. And the reality of it being, and again, I don't fault anybody for having a chance to make money in the revenue-generating sports of football and men's more than women's, but both forms of basketball in the college game, especially given how much investments are often made to get these players to that level. How much have you noticed that as well? And, maybe not to the same degree in high school sports, but the fact that, when there's more money available, a lot of families see it as a chance to finally pay off on the investment of how many of these kids, and sometimes it's just for the love of the game, but they spend so much on travel sports leagues and ways to cultivate their skills that when there is a chance for a payoff, it's really hard to turn that down.
Yeah, there are a lot of people out there too who will that discussion of whether you should keep doing travel and whether you should really get on that grind every single weekend. That's a question nationally. It's a question locally. I've heard a lot of kids recently talk about the fact that I don't really need to be doing this year round. I don't need to be traveling all over the place. I need to be able to sit back and enjoy the time. And I think that's the question that is kind of burning in a lot of families is like, well, do I spend all this money on these kind of programs to get this kind of exposure, or is it good enough simply to let my child play sports at a high school level and let them enjoy it? And sometimes that exposure may be worth it, and at other times it's just you just got to let kids be kids and enjoy whatever they want to do, and whether or not that's good enough to go to the next level is one thing, but yeah, there are just a ton of issues around this kind of thing that I think are pretty interesting and that affect a lot of people.
Ben Cates 8, Twitter, BenCatesNewsAdvance.com is hanging out with us today in the Fast Lane. Ben, when you're watching these players from high school and then especially ones that go on to college, we've seen it before, but most notably Emma Lemley, who's from Jefferson Forest and is at Virginia Tech and has had a handful, literally like a handful, of no-hitters and perfect games this year, and now she'll be part of the Professional Softball League, as that was announced on Sunday at the conclusion of the Virginia Tech softball game. Do you see that particular level, or do you see a lot of the potential but know that it's kind of a roll of the dice for some guys who realize it and some guys and gals it doesn't?
It's always interesting when you see somebody really succeed and who's from the area, and you know that they have been capable of really good things all along. And, you know, whether or not that translates to a pro contract is like, I mean, that's just so, the odds of that happening are so slim. But, and that's one thing that makes what has happened, what Emma has done for herself and how she has made herself into a wonderful pitcher. It makes it all of that much more impressive because she's had a really good family structure, really good family involvement, and has really thrived at the college level after thriving at the high school level. And a lot of times you just don't know. You just don't know if that is going to translate over to the college level after a kid has had so much success in high school, because you've got 20 or 30 kids who have, or in football's case, you've got 100 kids who have, who were the star of their high school team. So anytime you see that grit and determination and that raw talent that has really developed itself, I think it's a remarkable thing.
Ben Cates 8, Twitter, newsadvance.com. As Ben is with us in the Fast Lane. Ben, great to catch up as always. We really appreciate your time going with a different route of our discussion today, and look forward to more of these and, of course, covering high school sports as well when we chat in the Fast Lane, but what you'll do in the meantime at newsadvance.com.
Thank you, Ed. I appreciate you.
Ben Cates with us here in the Fast Lane, and great to be speaking with him. When we return, we will talk some NHL playoffs. Washington Capitals. Now that they've got the Alex Ovechkin thing out of the way, can they regain the focus necessary to go on a deep playoff run, or have they been too distracted by that? Neil Smith, former president and general manager of the 1994 Stanley Cup champion New York Rangers and co-host of the NHL Wraparound podcast, set to join us next here in the Fast Lane.
Selection, value, finance options, and exceptional service. Why start anywhere else? It's all in one location at the Used Car Superstore on the Sheeler Motor Mile. And with straightforward pricing and inventory arriving daily, there's no reason to start anywhere else than the Motor Mile. Volume selling means volume pricing, and we've got the volume. The Used Car Superstore is your one stop for most makes and models. Cars, trucks, vans, SUVs, many have miles in the teens, remaining factory warranties, and some are even local one-owner vehicles. Shop over 900 used vehicles in stock now, more than any other dealer in the area. Sheeler owns the finance company, so getting approved for credit is easy on the Motor Mile. With financing options for every budget, you're a valued customer and not just a number on the Motor Mile. The Used Car Superstore on the Sheeler Motor Mile, your premier family-owned car dealer serving Southwest Virginia and surrounding areas for 50 years. I-81 exit 118C in Christiansburg. Call 866-SHEELER1. Always open at Sheeler.com. And we're excited to welcome Honda and Hyundai to the Motor Mile family. Why start anywhere else?
Car insurance rates are rising rapidly. That's no secret. It's because the cost of medical care for those who are injured and the repair and replacement cost of damaged vehicles is skyrocketing. But what can you do about it? Hi, this is Judd Gardner with Gardner Insurance Solutions in Lynchburg. We've been helping Central Virginia drivers purchase the coverage they need at affordable prices since 1993. Talk with us before you pay again. We represent numerous companies and have many cost-saving strategies. Gardner Insurance Solutions, 434-316-5433.
When you're voted one of the best plumbers according to Lynchburg Living magazine, you want to hire the best. Sullivan Plumbing wants the best plumbers to join our award-winning team. Do you have a clean driving record? Do you have at least 4 years plumbing experience? Then you're a 5-star recruit, and Sullivan Plumbing would love to meet with you. Take the first step. Call Sullivan Plumbing in downtown Lynchburg, or email sullivanplumbing@gmail.com.
Hi, Gary the Third here, and I'm excited to say spring has arrived at Gary's Garden Center. Great plants and a great selection. Gary's has seasonal color flowers along with vegetables, 60-plus varieties of herbs, perennial flowers, and much more. With friendly service and great advice, we are always happy to answer your questions. Visit Gary's Garden Center at 794 Leesville Road for all your lawn and garden needs. Stop by, say hi, and take a look around.
I feel like you would look famished losing 20. But what do I know? Signed Armando, not in the Africa or the other Armando. Yeah, 20, I could stand and lose a few. We could all lose a few. I'm not a big enough guy to lose 20 without it. Yeah, it might be a bit much. There might be a Mookie situation if I lost 20. I once famously went on the COVID diet.
Well, a little bit of a technical challenge with us as we welcome you back into the Fast Lane on the VTRN Sports app. Not sure why it cut out from our glorious partners, but that will get resolved in the meantime. Thinking on the fly and making adjustments. It is ever crucial this time of year, particularly as playoff time arrives, including in the NHL. And maybe one of the bigger pivots that needs to be made is the Washington Capitals, who for so much of the second half of this season, understandably, because they were in such a good spot with their regular season and they're winning games and had themselves firmly locked into a solid playoff position. But it almost seemed watching them like the focus shifted from getting to the best version of themselves for the playoffs to making sure Alexander Ovechkin catches and breaks Wayne Gretzky's all-time goal-scoring record. And now that they're through that, it's almost like it's kind of a reset. So somebody familiar with that, somebody who was actually there at UBS Arena with the NHL Wraparound podcast and is the former president and general manager of the 1994 Stanley Cup champion New York Rangers, Neil Smith, generous enough to join us in the Fast Lane. Neil, a pleasure to be speaking with you. You have been following from a distance and up close the Alexander Ovechkin chase. How right or wrong are we that for the Washington Capitals, the biggest challenge awaiting them is shifting from the mindset of getting Alexander Ovechkin the record to what they really set out to be the start of the year, which is to be a playoff caliber team and be able to go as far as possible, which ultimately is the objective of everybody, which is hoisting the cup.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, Ed. I think that in watching the Caps the last month of the season, it seemed like the pressure from the outside world about the record and Ovechkin's goal-scoring record sort of turned the team's attention away from winning every game and going for the President's Trophy and so on and so forth to let's get Alex's record. Let's make sure that he gets it this season. And, they lost that game at UBS Arena 4-1 with the night that Alex, or the afternoon that Alex scored that goal. And that's not a surprise because everything was such a big deal about that one goal. I guess what's concerning to me is that I went and saw them play again back at UBS Arena last night. And I didn't think, even though they won the game, I didn't think they were playing the way they had been playing when they were firing on all cylinders. So I would think that Spencer Carbery has got his work cut out for him to, get these guys refocused on the task at hand and back to systemized play and, heading into the playoffs the way they were playing back in February, let's say.
You mentioned the timeline of February and how the Washington Capitals played then versus, the bulk of March and into early April with the breaking of Wayne Gretzky's record for Alex Ovechkin. Elaborate further, if you don't mind, and in particular, from your experience studying the game as a former NHL executive, how you shift back from, maybe the cushion and the knowledge that for the Capitals, it seemed they were in the position where they could focus on Ovechkin because they had built up such a good regular season, but needing to get back to, is it almost the basics of what you do to make sure you're playing the right way in the playoffs?
I think so. And, the one thing that the Caps have going for them is Coach Carbery. I'm so impressed with him and the way he's handled this team the last 2 years, including getting that team into the playoffs last year, which I didn't think was possible, but he did it, even though they got steamrolled in the first round. And then the way that the management put pieces in place over the offseason, and then the way Carbery brought them all together and molded them into such a great unit and everybody playing at their best. I mean, Dubois has had several other chances to show that he's an elite player. He's never done it. And he's got a great role in Washington and has played really well. Dylan Strome, who got a hat trick last night at UBS Arena when they won 3-1 against the Islanders, has found a home in Washington playing like he never played before. So I give a lot of credit to Spencer Carbery and the way he's coached that team, and I think he will know how to get them back focused again on the playoffs.
Neil Smith with us here in the Fast Lane. Neil, the playoffs are coming quickly. We're at the end of the regular season. Two teams that Washington could potentially play in their opening round matchup. Is there a preference out of that bunch, whether it's Columbus, whether it's Montreal? What's your read on how this interesting now, particularly because of Montreal kind of throwing away some opportunities over the last couple of games, that all of a sudden the Capitals, not that they get to pick one, but is there one that you believe they would match up better with?
I do think, Ed, and let me say it right on here so that you can say tomorrow, well, Neil was wrong, or he was right. But I do think it's going to be Montreal, because from what I understand, Carolina's not dressing a lot of their top players tonight. So I think Montreal in the Bell Center will clinch the playoff spot, which I feel bad for Columbus, because I've sort of been cheering for them with all the problems they've had at the beginning of the year, and that they're a very amazing story where they've gotten to. I think the Canadians will be good for the Caps. It'll be a good warm-up. They'll get their warts out of their system. I do think they'll beat the Habs. And perhaps they won't beat them quickly. Perhaps it'll take a lot of adjustments, but when they come out of that series, they'll be better than they are right now. I think that they'll get all their things ironed out. And this is what you deserve when you have a season like Washington. You deserve to get the weakest playoff team, and Montreal, in my mind, will be the weakest playoff team. If somehow Montreal loses in regulation tonight, which they'd have to do to not make it, and somehow Columbus wins in regulation against the Islanders tomorrow night, and it's Columbus, the same thing applies. I think that the Washington Capitals have shown over this regular season that they're a very dominant team. And even if they've got a little bit of their gears out of alignment right now because of what we've talked about, I think they'll get it back in place.
Neil, you can come at me for a stupid sports talk question if this comes out the wrong way. I won't be the first or last time I ask a potentially bad question. But is it almost a potential blessing in disguise for the Washington Capitals if instead of it being an early series against either Columbus or Montreal, that it may go 5-6, they'll probably don't want 7 games, but 5 to 6 games where they can start to find their form? Or can you just not afford to think that way in the playoffs, even when there seems to be a pretty sizable gap between the Capitals and whoever they end up playing?
Well, I think for the players and the coaches, you've got to think of, we want to go in and we want to win 4 straight. But you don't think about 4, you think about 1. You're thinking about game 1. That's what the players and the coaches have to think about. They get ready for game 1, period 1, then period 2, then period 3, and then on to the next game. But you want to get rid of a team as fast as you can in the playoffs. I think from the outside looking in, that the adversity that they're facing at the end of the regular season and maybe into the first round, who knows, is going to serve them well down the road, because that they're going to have ironed out problems. The worst thing that you can have happen to you, and I had this with one of my teams, you breeze through the year, you win the President's Trophy, you don't have any problems, and bang, you hit adversity in the first, second, or third round, and now you don't know how to handle it, because it's like, oh my God, we lose 2 more games and our year is over. Whereas if you face adversity and you stay calm, you can get through it. And I think so for Washington, they faced a little bit of adversity here, not playing that well in March and early April. And I think that will serve them well. And I think that in that first round, and again, I want to emphasize, you deserve to get the easiest opponent if you have a season like Washington and you end in first place in the Eastern Conference.
So they've clearly earned that. Their second round matchup might well be, and you kind of teased it on not the NHL Wraparound podcast that dropped today. Again, got to get my confession on here that I have not listened to the one with Sam Rosen about his time. It dropped about an hour and a half before the show. So I will allot that for my morning workout tomorrow, Neil. But you presume Carolina. You guys have mentioned how New Jersey, they've kind of been leaking oil, so to speak, down the stretch. Are we looking at a Carolina-Washington second round matchup and maybe even discussing that in a couple of weeks?
Yeah, I think you are. Because I'm not with any team, and because I guess I'm friends with a lot of people on every team, I guess I can go ahead and presume that Washington will beat Montreal and presume that Carolina will beat New Jersey and not jinx any of those teams, because I'm not with them, so it doesn't matter. But I think you are looking at Raleigh, North Carolina, and Washington, D.C. playing each other in the second round. I really believe that. And that'll be a tougher matchup for Washington, certainly than the first round, but not one that I would expect that they couldn't overcome.
we will be like the kids stuck between disputes in the household because we're right between Raleigh and Washington, where we're based at the Fast Lane in the Virginia Talk Radio Network for what will transpire going forward. Neil, a pleasure to speak with you. We'll wrap it up on this one. Again, haven't had a chance to listen to your interview with the outgoing Rangers broadcaster, Sam Rosen, but just curious, you and Vic Morin, who does a lot of our voiceover work here at the Virginia Talk Radio Network, you had a chance to speak with him. Has your appreciation, was it always there for what a guy like Sam Rosen has done and meant? Did it get heightened by being together on that run to the 1994 championship with the New York Rangers, or has it strengthened since then, particularly now that you and Vic have collaborated on the NHL Wraparound podcast?
You know, the interview that we did the other day made me realize again, this friend that I've had since 1980, he's been a friend of mine long before he got the Ranger job, has such passion for doing his job as a play-by-play broadcaster that he loves still doing, like if he can't do a national game on TV and they offer him one on radio, he's right there. He just loves to be there and he loves the game. He loves, and I just admire that so much that he still has the passion that I knew that he had back in the early 80s. And it really comes through when you talk to him. It is amazing. He's very sharp. He's right on top of things, but his love for doing his job, it comes through, over and over again when you talk to him.
It's awesome to hear. It's great to see. I'm looking forward to the interview with Sam Rosen. Obviously, his contributions on the 1994 and Forever podcast series that y'all dropped about a year ago, but I'd encourage our listeners to go back and check out that multi-part podcast series on the NHL Wraparound podcast. You just have to scroll a little bit further down for that series. But somebody who was part of that, because he was part of the run in 1994 and now lending his insight in the media, is Neil Smith, the former president and GM of the New York Rangers, with us in the Fast Lane. Neil, great to be speaking with you, and would love to catch up again in a couple of weeks as the playoffs get going.
Sure. Maybe you can bring me back and then you can tell me how I blew it on all the things I said would happen. Never happened. But that's what's fun about the playoffs. You just never know.
It is. You never know what's going to happen. And ultimately, at least many of us are left scratching our heads here in the media. Neil, great to speak. Thank you. And looking forward to listening to the pod when I'm working out tomorrow morning.
Thanks, Ed. Have a good workout.
Indeed. Neil Smith with us here. That wraps it up for us today here in the Fast Lane. W227BG, Timberlake, WBGM AM Lynchburg, WMNA, Gretna, Southside, Danville, and all across the Virginia Talk Radio Network and the VTRN Sports app. That does it for us today. We're back tomorrow at 5.
Live action, 4 games in practice. Great games and contests tonight. We had the play-in in the NBA, a couple of